and welcome to our brand new pro wrestling debate show. This is Gripebombs, and not only will we today find out who is definitively the best member of the Shield, but we will once and for all put to bed the debate of which is the best promo of all time, Steiner math or the pipe bomb. Everybody's been waiting. Let's meet our contestants. First up, representing the pipe bomb, it's Oli Davis.
Yep, YouTube's own. Don't boo me. Look, this is disrespectful already in these debates. Can we mute his mic when I'm speaking? No, right, okay. Well, then,
Thank you, Editor Adam.
I thought I'd ask. Yeah, I'm here. I'm representing CM Punk and the Pipe Bomb Brigade. The voice of the voiceless is what they call me. And over there is the calculator of the dummies.
Got him. Also, in the middle is Laurie Blake.
Hello, I'm Switzerland.
And at the end, we've got representing Steiner math. It's 33 1/3% of our panel here.
Yep.
Oh. It's Luke Owen.
Absolutely, and I am for sure going to win this because the maths is on my side. I'm here to represent the fat asses out there in the wrestling promo world.
Tremendous. Well, that will be our main event of the afternoon, of course. But before that, we have a full hour of pro wrestling debate topics to get through first.
Like
the way this is going to work, yes. It's like Twitter, but more civilized. The way this is going to work is each of our lovely contestants here has already submitted their picks for 5 different debate topics. The first of which is going to be the best member of the Shield. Now, the way that this is all going to work, I, of course, am known to be quite an opinionated fellow, but I'm going to park that at the door, and I'm going to, as objectively as humanly possible, just look at each of your arguments, see who makes the best points, who maybe takes the other person's points down a peg, and reveals more truth to the matter. That being said, once the winner of a round has been determined, they will receive 1 point.
1 point.
1 point. And whoever has the most points at the end of 5 rounds will be declared the winner of the day. So, let's get underway with our first debate topic, shall we? It was the title of this video. It was what was on the thumbnail. The best member of the Shield. They're doing the pose.
Triple powerbomb.
Oh, God. That deduct
Not
points
through
already.
this table. It was expensive.
I think you break your back as well.
Yeah.
It's because Triple H was on camera doing this.
It's a Japanese table, this. I am the table. I don't know. What's going on over here?
There's a bit in, what pay-per-view is it?
It was the lead up to whenever they did the second 6-man tag with Evolution.
Payback.
Yeah, and they're doing the pose. Well, they're like Shield are in the ring and they'll be like all intimidating stuff, and Evolution are backing up the ramp, but they're not doing the fist bump pose. So Triple H starts walking forward and below camera starts doing this to tell guys to do this, and Roman Clark is like, huh?
He's doing it for ages.
And then Roman goes like, oh yeah.
It's like that. The insults from Friends. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's inverted.
You go watch the clip, it's hilarious.
With that being said, let's start at this end of the table. Ollie, who is your choice? He's come prepared.
He's got notes.
My choice for the best member of the Shield is Dean Ambrose. We all forget, because we all like Roman Reigns now, and Seth Rollins is okay, I guess, that Dean Ambrose was all our favourite in the early days of the Shield. He was the US champion, even though he didn't really have a defender. We thought he was going to be the one who turned heel and turned into like the breakout star who wasn't Roman. Seth was the one who was going to go by the wayside. He had the best promos. We wanted him to win all the matches. But then he didn't, but he was still the emotional heart of that feud. Him going against Seth, he was the emotional parts, and Seth and Roman, they had like the superficial high spot moments. Dean comes out of that, and he becomes the most hard-working wrestler, not just in the company, but in the world. In 2015, he wrestled 218 times. In 2016, he wrestled 204 times. That's the most of anyone in the world, and that second year was him building that new brand split SmackDown roster, where he won the Money in the Bank, where, might I add, that's the closest we've come to a Shield triple threat, where they all wrestled on the same night? Is that false?
We did get one on pay-per-view.
Hey, whoa. But who ended that night? It was Dean Ambrose with the championship, and he built SmackDown afterwards. And then, I don't know if you know this, Dean Ambrose is the same guy as Jon Moxley. It's like 2 for the price of 1. Because the other Shield members, they've always been WWE Seth Rollins. They've always been WWE Roman Reigns. Jon Moxley goes to AEW. He's the only 3-time ever world champion, and one of those was in maybe 4-time, if you include an interim. He has seen Rocky IV. He has come through for that company time and time again when other people got injured who haven't seen Rocky IV, and he has brought them through. And he's not just a wrestler. He's an inspiration because he checked himself into rehab because he recognized his own alcoholism.
Not how I thought we were going to end that portion, but a fitting start.
Yeah.
Laurie, your choice.
My choice is Seth freaking Rollins, the Viper amongst the Shield, the person waiting to strike at a moment's notice. Seth is the one who is clearly the most talented in the ring by a long, long way. Seth is the one who has been burdened with, well, not burdened with necessarily, because actually what's happened is every single gimmick he's tried has fit. This man is a wrestling chameleon. This man can get over stuff like nobody's business. Not only that, but he is somebody who elevates the company and everyone else he's in the ring with. He is someone who can drag a good match out of everybody. His work rate is absolutely insane, putting the company on his back, to the detriment of his back multiple times. Like, Seth Rollins is the guy that you can just trust to do this. He's the guy that WWE clearly saw to be the next one. He's somebody who has run with every single thing they've given him. Roman, how many things has Roman had to run with and failed to get over? Dean failed to get over multiple things in WWE, and Seth has stuck the landing on multiple occasions.
Very strong. Luke, round us out. Who could it possibly be? It's Kurt Angle.
Oh, this is Triple H. He's the guy who's running the ship now. My choice is Roman Reigns. When the Shield started, the whole point of the Shield was to create 3 stars, 3 breakout stars. And while it can be argued that Seth Rollins has done a very good job of being a top guy for a brand, and Jon Moxley has been a top guy for a secondary promotion in terms of the grander, in terms of, like, you know, the overall popularity of wrestling, the number 2 promotion. He's been a top guy there, and he's done very well for New Japan. There is only one guy who has been the top star of not only the biggest wrestling promotion in the world, but all of professional wrestling. And Ollie's point was that we all liked Dean, and that is true. We all did like Dean. We all really liked Seth as well, but let's not forget that Royal Rumble, when we really wanted Roman Reigns to win because we saw him as the potential future top guy of this. It is not WWE, it's not Roman Reigns' fault that WWE did a bad job of him. It's actually a credit to Roman Reigns, how he took everything that worked against him by creative and has turned it into, and I hate to use this word, generational run. A generational world championship run. A generational WrestleMania record. A generational gimmick and group and faction and character that has dominated and really has seen WWE go from strength to strength to strength to strength. He is the most reliable guy within this company that even when he only wrestles a handful of times a year, you can always guarantee that the ratings go up and interest skyrockets.
Well, we've had the introductory arguments of all 3 of our competitors here. A lot of good points made, I think, but I want to give you all a chance to challenge one another on maybe some things that I don't know if everyone on the panel would agree with that were said. I'm going to start back around with Oli, though. You talked a lot about Dean Ambrose, and that's fair. Dean Ambrose is the one in the vest. But maybe wanted to give you a little bit of a chance just to put over Jon Moxley because perhaps he's the one that has had a better run, whereas Dean Ambrose was maybe lesser than or such.
Good point. John Moxley wasn't actually in the Shield.
That's right. Yeah.
John Moxley, by name, was not in the Shield.
You even said yourself they're different people.
No. I said it's not many people know this. They're the same person, like Kevin Owens and El Generico. I would say that John Moxley in AEW has been integral to that company's growth and foundation. If you remove Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins,
point to me.
I'm going to point. If you remove either of those from WWE just continues upwards. Yeah, Roman's been behind a lot of the recent upswing, but is that actually Paul Levesque's new creative direction? Is that actually The Rock? Is that actually Cody Rhodes? If John Moxley isn't in AEW from Double or Nothing 2019, that promotion doesn't follow the same trajectory in those initial years. And he's the champion going into the pandemic. That could have been a death spiral for that company, yet he spearheaded them forward. John Moxley also in ring-wise, because I sort of just spoke, I did the Miz style where I just listed off, I've won this championship, and I did these things out of the ring. In ring, he's totally transformed himself from this lunatic fringe in WWE to someone who I'm genuinely afraid to be near. He's got a totally different look. He's always bleeding, and he dishes out violence. As he's a founding member of the Blackpool Combat Club in a way that is totally unique to him, and in a way that has transcended national boundaries by going over to New Japan and just fitting in seamlessly there. As of the other month, he was the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. He's wrestled in the G1. He's had some of the best matches with Ishii and Suzuki. Can't say that for these two losers.
Any rebuttal to that?
I think there is a lot of people who can be given credit to for the rise of AEW in its early days. I think Jericho is someone you could certainly say he is key to the success there. But I do think that Moxley has had an incredible impact on All Elite Wrestling. I don't think that can be denied. And I do think that his work has been exceptional outside of the ring. But perhaps what people might point to is like, well, what's been the classic Moxley feud that he's had in that AEW run? Like, I could think of some that I might be able to present, but are they going to be as remembered in 10 years' time as, say, I don't know, the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns?
John Moxley's a bleeder as well. He's a big bleeder. He loves to bleed, loves to cause violence. It's cheap. It's easy. Gets a pop, doesn't it? It's just playing. It's just pandering to the audience. Don't pander to the audience. I live
do
by
another
that.
running dive outside, Seth Rollins.
Do you want to just bump through a table, do you, John? It's an easy night at the office, I guess.
We'll turn our attention a little bit to Roman Reigns, I think, because at this point, probably inarguably the biggest star amongst them all, having just main evented WrestleMania and such. But I want to give Luke a chance to look back on the times before the Tribal Chief, the times where Roman Reigns was not looked at as a success, and ask how you can look at those times and still take them into consideration when determining a full body of work and who would be considered the best member of the Shield.
So I think those two kind of go hand in hand with one another. Without those bad years, the suffer and succotash years, without those creative flaws that came from a very, very bad creative mind, without those, you do not get what we have now. So you can look back on them with the benefit of hindsight to be like, maybe those 10 years were worth it because we got what was incredible coming out the back of end of it here. And there was some other good stuff in WWE, but I think even within those 10 years, or however long it was that he was just sort of like the boring lad that was on top all the time, 7, 8 years, whatever you want to say, there was always this comment that we used to get a lot on like the podcast and when we used to do reviews of these shows as well is, yeah, but he's a really good wrestler though. And he would always have these matches. Like I look back at the Braun Strowman feud, which always had like these great, incredible matches. That first Brock match at WrestleMania is a genuinely really good match. So even when he was burning, boring Roman Reigns, I'm in my flak vest and I've got my protective gear on me because I'm apparently a weak person, he was having great matches. And he was given those opportunities to have those great matches and always delivered in those moments. He overcame bad creative and then use that bad creative to create this new role we're on now.
Any thoughts from the rest of the panel?
7 to 8 years is that what's wrong with wrestling? That we sit there and we go, no, those 7 to 8 years of it being absolute dog shit was fine because we got one good thing at the end of that. And that good thing also then went on for ever so slightly too long, didn't it? That good thing, there was a little bit of that good thing, but there was about a year of it where we were just treading water.
But did we all love WrestleMania 40 though, didn't we? So it was
No,
all worth
not
it.
all of us did.
It was all worth it in the end.
7 to 8 years to be like, do you know what? It was all worth it. What are we're suddenly all fucking Zen monks, aren't we? Sitting there being like, no, I found Nirvana, it was fine. Waiting for Roman Reigns to turn into the tribal chief.
I will watch 30 of those Jey Uso matches if it means I get that WrestleMania match.
I think 6 years, recency bias, which you use as an argument a lot, 6 years of really bad Roman Reigns stuff. And yeah, he's a victim of circumstance and a lot of that because he's definitely proved afterwards he's a great creative mind, he's a great presence, and he carries himself like a top star. But those were dark, dark times. Like, I don't care. Oh, well, it was really good in the ring. I don't care about that if everything else around it sucks.
But that's not his fault. To that point, Dean wasn't all that great in those times either.
So what did he do? He left. And he did it better elsewhere.
And what did Roman do? Roman made it better himself.
Well, this is the other thing. I think, and this is unpopular, Roman, I do love. I'll put this out there first. But Roman is made interesting by the people around him. He is early Thor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He needs a Jey Uso. He needs a Sami Zayn. He needs a Solo. He needs a Paul Heyman. He's not someone actually, when you put him by himself, is that engaging, because when he doesn't have those other bits of conflict around him, you get those long 8-month stretches of that Bloodline story, which were totally not compelling.
But I think that actually works against your argument. Because you're saying then that he's only interesting because of the people around him, and then your point you made was when he's not there, that story's not interesting. That reason why is he's the interesting person.
No, I'm saying
there.
when other people aren't there. Like when he's just treading water, like Laurie said in parts of this feud, where it's just, oh yeah, we're going to do a Jey Uso thing. Yeah, we're going to do the Jimmy Uso thing again. It's not interesting.
I think that's the other people's fault. That is not a Roman problem. That is a Jimmy Uso problem. That is a Jey Uso problem. That is a Solo Sikoa problem. That is not a Roman Reigns problem.
I think that's an interesting debate to have within this topic, but I want to take an extra little bit of time here to look at Seth Rollins.
I'm not taking any further questions, actually.
Thought you got away with this one. You distracted us.
No, I'm not taking any further questions. I rest my case.
Every gimmick
Every
he's
single
done
one.
has been good.
This is a man who can come out looking like a jelly baby and it works. Like, he can wear those weird red boots and it works.
I will simply pose the question
No, I'm not
that whereas you had on one hand Roman Reigns, the top star of WWE, Jon Moxley, in a lot of ways, maybe the top star of AEW, certainly one of them, there is potentially an argument to be made that Seth Rollins, while great in the ring, hasn't ever been the guy within WWE themselves, and within the brand he's always sort of been looked at as number 2 compared to what's going on. How does that help or hinder your argument, Laurie, do you reckon?
Well, I think that actually helps my argument immensely, because not being the top guy means that you are working harder, generally speaking, to stand out, which means that Seth Rollins' star ratings for his matches were probably higher than both these guys put together. Seth Rollins continually turns up and works harder than anybody else. I think the other thing is Seth Rollins is what he's been trusted to do in WWE, and I think that's a very major thing. Every time they've needed somebody to step into a championship at the last minute, be it the Universal title, be it the World Heavyweight Championship, it's Seth Rollins is the pick. He is the guy to take something, turn up every week, importantly, and be kind of one of the showcase athletes that they have on the brand. Roman, they made really special, but look at the machinery move around him. Look at the amount of effort they have put into Roman Reigns over the years. The amount of people, he's got like 5 hangers on. He's got Paul fucking Heyman coming out and saying stuff for him. Seth Rollins is doing this on his own in terms of like, yeah, he's getting given good chances, but yeah, like you said, he's not the top guy in the company. He's not being presented necessarily as such. And yet, people are still excited to see Seth Rollins wrestle week in and week out.
To Laurie's point, that World Heavyweight Championship needed a good hand to really make sure that it felt like it was a prize that people wanted to win. And I think giving it to Seth Rollins was such a smart move because he was the top guy of a brand that belt was assigned to, and he did a really good job of making that belt feel like it was important, and he worked very hard to make it feel important. Perhaps a harder thing to be given then is given a world title that people thought had a really naff name and a really bad design, and Roman was given that, and he actually made that belt the most important belt within WWE.
Can I just go back to my notes that I prepared? If we're just going on Laurie's point of like who's the hardest working, it's categorically Dean Ambrose in the 2015-2016 years. It's a fact. It's on Cage Match.
He also said I think he regrets a lot of that.
Well, we're not debating does Dean regret.
But also, it's also like,
works.
is it quantity or is it quality? And like, I think there's a balance to be struck between the two. And maybe Seth is the guy striking that balance. Because Roman's definitely he's definitely not offering you quantity, is he?
It's not about quantity, it's all
no.
quality though.
And what's working harder at the end of the day? Is it staying in your job where you're beloved by Triple H and your bosses and stuff, or is it going out and paving your own way?
Betting on yourself.
And you know what? Japanese wrestling's really cool.
It just might be.
And you know what he did? He went out there and did some Japanese
You
wrestling.
don't need to curry favor with the host. It may work in your favor.
Tempest said he was going to be objective, as subjectively objective as possible.
As possible being the operative word. I think we have hit
But I am me, ultimately.
most all of these points. A quick sum up conclusion to each of y'all. Kind of just hit home what you think is your tagline, your elevator pitch as to why your guy is the best member of the Shield. Ollie, we'll start with you.
Dean Ambrose was the hardest working member of the Shield. Originally, he was all our favourite member of the Shield. He was creatively stifled in WWE, and he bet on himself. He left, and he helped create a whole new company, of which he was a fundamental part of building it. And then he went over to Japan and won their top championship too. And he's a stand-up bloke.
Laurie?
It's just facts, isn't it? It's not this guy. It's not this guy. It's the guy in the middle.
Luke?
You can be the top star of a brand. You can be the top star of a promotion. But there is only one top star of all of wrestling. A genuine mainstream breakout guy. And that is Roman Reigns.
I thought you were going to acknowledge him then.
Not that much.
That's a different faction. Well, that'll bring our first round here to a close. I think very good arguments have been made all the way around. And really, what makes this show fun is I don't think there is a wrong answer to all of this. No, there isn't a wrong answer.
In what world?
There's not a wrong answer.
Who's got the biggest hat? Who's got the biggest coat? It's Seth Rollins.
Yeah, it doesn't mean Jamiroquai was the best artist of the 90s.
I think it does, actually.
It holds up. That's,
Yeah, exactly.
I
And
think
before that, it was Boy George. So,
But importantly as well, it doesn't just come down to what is, the correct answer, but it's also the strongest arguments to be made. Thus, this was a very difficult decision to be made, but I'm going to give the first point of this here Gripebomb show to Ollie.
Sublime!
do you know what? You can be objectively wrong as well.
Yeah, it turns out
you can
you
be
can,
objectively
yeah.
wrong, it turns out.
Yeah.
Japanese wrestling.
Yeah.
Honestly, that didn't
the
have
little
as much to do with
NJPW
it.
suck up.
Yeah, put some sticks in his head, did he? 5 stars.
Bleed, bleed, bleed.
Is it? Oh.
Should we all try and do it together?
Oh, that's a horrible noise. Enough of this. Enough of this. We need to move on. But yes.
Whitney's sick in his mouth.
Awful noise.
Whitney, we've got the Shield at home.
Don't do it again. But yes, I thought everybody made very good points, very good arguments for your guy. I think there are arguments to be made for each of them, but I do think better points were made in opposition of the other two than were made against Dean Ambrose / Jon Moxley that eventually put it across the finish line. That being said, let's move on to our second round here. You may have seen it in our list right here on PartsFUNknown this past weekend. You may have seen it over on the Wrestle Talk podcast channel, where we polled not only all the members on this table, but many of the extended universe here in the Wrestle Talk and partsFUNknown family. What is the best match of 2024 so far? We've just passed the halfway point of the year. We're in the back half. Maybe we'll have different answers by the time we reach December. But so far, from January to June, what's been the best match of 2024 thus far? We're going to start with Laurie this time.
That's interesting, because some people might say things like Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson. I don't know who's picked that one.
How do you know my pick?
I'm just guessing there's a pick there for that one. Some people might say it might be Cody versus Roman Reigns. But I'm going to say that the best match of 2024 so far is Ricochet versus Ilya Dragunov. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's very easy to turn up and main event WrestleMania and have the best match of your career, because that's when you think you should do it. When you're just debuting for a new company and you're against Bryan Danielson, of all people, yes, of course, you should put on a banging match. But when you just turn up on a Raw for the first round match of a tournament you're not even going to bloody win, and you have a stellar, knock it out of the park, 10 to 15 minute match, that is incredible. Ricochet's not even going to be in the company anymore. He was on the way out and he was like, do you know what? One last one. I'm just going to do something absolutely incredible. Ilya Dragunov and Ricochet are also two people who are they've just been passed over again and again and again. And there was every opportunity to go into this exact match and just do it really lame. It's just another day on the job. But they didn't. They turned up. They tried to make this match feel important. They tried to put each other over as best they could, and they did a damn good job of it. And the other thing that I think is important about this match is they took on board the fact that what you have to do in this match is get over this tournament. This tournament that people they're not even that bothered by, Like, it's a tournament that's going to, finish at Saudi. Nobody necessarily cares about King of the Ring. It's not really been a thing forever, but they treated it like it meant the damn world, and that is good wrestling.
I will say that while this match is the only one that didn't feature on our list of matches on partsFUNknown, it is the one I was saddest to see not on the list.
Yeah, me too.
Just couldn't fit it on, but subjectively might be my favorite of the ones to be discussed here. Not putting any favoritism points on any one particular person. But Luke, let's go to you next.
We can do that, Tempest. We can just say it's objective. we can do that. We can just say it. You can just give it to me and then say it's objective. No one will know.
Maybe I will. Luke?
Mm-hmm. It can be easy if you have the best wrestler in the world versus the best wrestler in the world, and they have the best wrestling match in the world. It's a very easy thing to accomplish. It's also a very easy thing to have two very, very good wrestlers in a tournament and kind of surprise people, and that become one of people's favorite matches. And I really like that as a choice, actually, because it kind of piggybacks into the choice that I have for my pick, which is Bayley versus Io Sky from WrestleMania. And the reason why I have gone for this match is that these two had everything working against them going into this match. The Damage Control storyline had the potential to be a very, very good story, and it could have been told. Bayley winning the Royal Rumble, Damage Control, Io Sky kind of bringing in new people outside of her remit, the former leader kicking the leader out, and then these two, the new leader going up against the old leader. It's a very, very simple story to tell, and WWE did not do a very good job of telling that story. They did not do a good enough job in making Bayley captivating enough, in making Io Sky captivating enough as a heel presence and as a world champion. So when they came out at WrestleMania and they had their spectacular entrances and then had the incredible match that they did, it kind of null and voids all of the bad creative. It reminds me of Sasha versus Bianca at WrestleMania, a match that had terrible creative going into it, but when the match was so good at the end of it, no one ever talks about the creative now. No one ever talks about Reginald. No one ever talks about him being a sommelier, a sommelier more like. What they talk about is the incredible match at WrestleMania. And for my money, if you remove all the goo-goo, the gaga, the pyro, and the ballyhoo from the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes stuff at WrestleMania, this is the best match of WrestleMania weekend.
Very bold. very bold, and indeed we will finish off with Oli, who has already said what his is. But take it away, champ.
Yeah, it's weird to be in this position. I've chosen Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson at AEW Dynasty.
That's like saying you support Man United. Isn't it? Well, when you're a kid, you live in South London, mate.
Yeah,
you don't support Man United.
So a lot of the, I think a lot of the argument against this match being the best match of the year so far is, oh, what? You've just got to chosen the best match of the year so far with the best two wrestlers in the world right now. What a late... Wait, what? It's not your favourite match of the year. So let me just recap how great this match is. First off, story-wise, you don't really need much of a story because it's already built in there for you. AEW takes a more sports-based approach to their storytelling. And this is very simple. It's Bryan Danielson, one of the best wrestlers of all time, but he's getting older. This is the last full-time year of his career, up against the new young upstart, the hottest new signing for AEW, Will Ospreay. He is also the best wrestler in the world, and he is a little bit younger. And in this match, which is just absolutely fantastic, of going back and forth, reversal, submissions. It starts off with Danielson a bit cocky in his way, but then Ospreay gets the better of him every now and then, and Danielson just starts to look a bit more stern, a bit more serious each time. And then at the end, it comes down to who is just that little bit quicker. It's Danielson in one corner, doing his yes chants. He's preparing the knee. It's Ospreay in the other corner. He's preparing the hidden blade, or it's like the front blade. I don't know what that variation's called. And it is a pure joust. The fastest wins. And Ospreay, because he's that little bit younger, was that little bit faster. He hits Danielson. Age was really Danielson's true enemy here. And then Ospreay hits the Tiger Driver and then hits another hidden blade to win. And you think, oh, well, that's great. It's the two best wrestlers in the world executing a perfectly done wrestling match with this awesome Bryan Danielson story over his replacement finally beating him. But actually, you're not left with that. You're left with Ospreay feeling remorse over what he's just done to Danielson. He hit the Tiger Driver, and that has made Danielson's neck spasm, and his career could be over. Yeah, granted, 3 weeks later he comes back and he's in a hardcore match. But in that moment, it felt like Ospreay had become the best wrestler in the world. But at what cost?
I've seen how long he's going to hold the pause.
So the camera changed as well. It's on mine and Luke's now.
These, again, are three very compelling arguments, as I figured that they all would be as we show up to these kind of shows prepared. I have a very difficult task ahead of me, because these are genuinely three of my favorite matches of the year so far. However, I think it is curious that both of our other contestants would look at a match like Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay and sort of try and say that it is perhaps easy to have a best match when it is two wrestlers of that caliber. I would like to give both Luke and Laurie a chance to explain why that would be a detraction from it.
I'm not saying it's a detraction, because I think...
No, I'm telling you to detract from it to make your argument stronger.
But I'm going to get to that, because I think, objectively speaking, and I even think subjectively speaking, that is the best match of the year. I think Bryan Danielson versus Will Ospreay is the best match of 2024. But it was always going to be the best match of 2024. Which is why I think Io Sky versus Bayley is better, because it had things working against it, and yet it came out being so much better than many people thought it was going to be. So if you have this over here, if you have a Michelin star meal, of course it's delicious. But if you go to Mackie D's and then you get a meal and you're like, God damn, that was actually a really good Mackie D's, that's the meal you're going to remember. Because over here, oh, that was just another 5-star meal that I've had.
Well, also a 5-star meal, you have 5-star expectations. Yeah. You also perhaps add some points to the thing,
of course,
because you are expecting it to be 5-star. People wanted Danielson and Ospreay to be the best match of the year. They
Absolutely.
Wanted it. So maybe there's a bit of kind of a biased buy-in from a viewer watching it, because it's fucking long. It's a long-ass match, and it feels long at points.
I don't know about that.
It feels long at points, comparatively to what is a short throwaway match that people thought was going to be an absolute nothing. For a nothing tournament in a sort of dead zone of WWE post-WrestleMania, right? And yet, Ilya and Ricochet come out, they absolutely smash it out of the park, and they get buy-in from an audience for a thing that nobody was expecting to be good, nobody really cared about, and yet they took the audience in the palms of their hand and made them care about this, what was really a throwaway match. People were more into this than they probably were at many of the points of England in the World Cup so far.
No one went into WrestleMania thinking that Bayley versus Io Sky would be the best match of the weekend.
And you know what? No one's saying that afterwards.
And nobody came out saying it over.
No, what people came out saying was like, that is so much better than I thought it was going to be. And you remove, again, all of the run-ins and the Undertakers and the Rocks and the biddly-doodly-doo. It's the best match of the weekend. Everyone went into Duck Dynasty knowing that was going to be the best match.
Yet you remove The Rock, you remove Undertaker, you remove John Cena. Gunther versus Sami Zayn is the better match than that weekend.
I strong disagree, because a lot of people wanted that to be Chad Gable going into it. So that had things working against it.
You just said that Bayley versus Io Sky had the whole creative storyline working.
And they overcame. I think Sami and Gunther overcame people wanting it to be Chad Gable, but not to the degree. Because in that match, I don't think that Sami Zayn flipped out of the rose plants, in which case, that's why the Bayley Io Sky match is a 5-star match.
No, but he just defeated the longest undefeated streak in decades in WWE. Also pretty good.
Hey, I'm not saying... this isn't a match of what is better of those two.
Well, but you keep saying that it's the best one of the weekend if people weren't so distracted by this whole Roman Cody thing.
Yeah.
As you can see, both Oli and Luke have lost the threads of their argument. My argument has remained solid. That Ricochet versus Ilya Dragunov is the best match of the year so far.
Let me bring my argument back to answer your points, and that is one around expectations. Because yes, Danielson versus Ospreay, everyone, it's a dream match. It's the dreamiest of dream match. Oh, Dream Boys. And the expectations were incredibly high for it. That doesn't mean you can coast. That just means the expectations, you've got to go and meet them and ideally surpass them. Because whenever we watch these sorts of dream matches, if they are just as good as you expect them to they're as good as you expect them to be, it's not that impressive. But what they went out and did is put on a match that was so much better and so more layered in character and emotion that I could even have dreamed, because they're the professionals here. But that's why it's so much better than what you're giving it credit for. And can I just get...
If I may, everything you've just said then, if you just replace the words Brian Danielson, Will Ospreay with Bayley, Io Sky, that's the argument that I've also made for my match.
Yeah, but one is... Okay, well, one is 6.5 stars on the Meltzer scale.
Of course it was going to, though.
That's one guy's opinion. On Cage Match, it is ranked as the highest rated North American match of all time. All the other 11 are Japanese. And that is 9.69 rating. So this year, if you just go by objective data gathering, which is the Cage Side Seats, audience rating matches, it's the best match ever.
So now we also trust Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes nowadays,
yes.
do we?
I guess those Transformers movies are the best movies.
Exactly, and I guess the game that you dislike must be bad because of Gamergate.
Of course, absolutely.
But you both said that it is a great match as well.
I'm not
It's a
disputing
fine match!
I disagree. I think it is the best match of the year. I truly do think that it is.
I feel like I'm being gaslit.
I'm not gaslighting you, because I'm agree. I do think it's the best match of the year, but it was always going to be. This, my pick, this was not supposed to be, and yet it's ended up on so many people's lists of the best match of the year.
I've not seen it anywhere.
It's on our list.
Not seen it anywhere but there.
It was in the partsFUNknown list.
I think if it's a different question. It's what's your favourite match of the year otherwise?
It's not even my favourite match of the year.
Well, why on earth have you picked it?
Because we had to pick a different one to you for starters.
I ask you, what is a wrestling match? Is a wrestling match going out there on the biggest show against the biggest guy ever and doing a really good job? Because in that case, yes, it is. Or is wrestling turning up and doing a job even when you don't want to, even when you're hurting, even when it's in a blooming community centre somewhere? Is that what wrestling is? Because if that's the case, then the best wrestling match of the year is Ilya Dragunov versus Ricochet. Two guys who had no reason to come out and have a match that good, and they just did it anyway because they wanted to, because they bloody love wrestling.
My second choice, by the way, was going to be Will Ospreay versus Michael Oku.
I thought you would have picked that.
Because again, that was always going to be the best match. So when I went into that match, watching it, I was like, yeah, this match is like it's met all of the expectations I wanted to be, and
This
in
is
some cases
hell.
actually
This is
succeeded.
hell.
You've
this
told
one over
me.
here is
Listen, I didn't want to
You've
return
told
to
me
wrestling
privately.
content. This is
I need a
hell.
gavel. I need a gavel. I reclaim control of this here debate. I think we've heard the arguments for each match. I think 3 of the best matches we have seen this year thus far. Nonetheless, while I do think that Laurie, I think you came very close to snatching it, because I didn't hear any dissenting voices from the rest. It got kind of caught in a debate between 2. However, unfortunately, I was told never to do this when I was in 7th grade and making my debates as a class project, but you never acknowledge that the other side is right. And unfortunately, that is what we had here, with Luke saying that Bryan Danielson and Will Ospreay was the best match of the year. And
Well, so Luke's out, but I'm still in, right? Like Luke's disqualified, but I'm still in.
Thus, however, I do think a lot of very good arguments were made for the remaining. But I will be giving the second round to Oli for Bryan Danielson.
Outrageous.
Sublime!
Luke, you fucked it for me.
I didn't.
You've absolutely fucked that
How's
for
it
me
my
there.
fault?
Because you said it was the best match.
But
It was obviously the best match, you idiot.
Well,
We don't say that.
Well, I know, but it was.
Next time I get a pick first.
I got my picks in early. You could have gone for Ospreay though. I think you were there at that show.
I was.
You could have definitely objectively convinced him.
Yeah, well, I didn't need to convince him on that one. We both know that was like, it's the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen live.
Look,
So why didn't you pick that
Because
one?
this one was a more surprising one. This one is the one at the end of the day. I'm actually more surprised that this ended up higher on my list because I never expected it to be. The other ones I knew were going to be high on my list.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. I picked the one that was shortest to rewatch.
Very good.
Can I just give an honourable mention? Because everyone else got to pick not the best match of the year and their favourites. Samoa Joe versus Hook.
I thought you might have picked that.
I was close.
So
I
good
was
though,
close.
right?
Yeah, but Ollie wanted to win.
Yeah, I wanted to win.
That being said, we'll move on to our third round here. In a similar vein, you may have also seen this on the Wrestle Talk podcast channel. The best wrestler of 2024 so far through the first 6 months of the year. Luke, we're going to come to you first. Take it away.
Thank you. I was waiting for my red light to know that it's on to me. Thank you very much, Adam Whitney.
We couldn't do any of this without you.
Clapping that one.
There you go, Whitney.
Oh, 4. That really threw out the rhythm.
I am Kurt Angle in this. Go on.
I'm in the gang.
When it comes to the best wrestler of 2024, you've got to look at a multitude of things. You've got to look at your aura. You have got to look at your interest levels, for sort of the general public, sort of speaking. You've got to look at the in-ring quality. You've got to look at the promo work, and you've got to look at the character work. And there are a lot of wrestlers that can really fill into those roles and can kind of like, yeah, they're really good at this one, but maybe this one down here isn't so great. They're really great at this one, but this one is, it's not, it's sort of good, but man, they're kind of lacking in this one, but it's sort of made up for here. There is but one wrestler, in my mind, that has accomplished all of these, have pushed everything up to 11. They have taken their sound mixing board and have put all of the faders up, and everything is at max, and that man is Drew McIntyre. That is a man who has had aura, who has had presence, who has captivated an audience with his incredible character work. This hypocrisy character that he has created. This man who feels like he's been jilted, rightly so because he has, while still remaining a heel and doing incredible angles. The angle with CM Punk in Chicago being a key example of this. So he's doing all of this while also having great matches on TV and doing great promo work on TV and on social media as well. Cleverly for Drew McIntyre, if I may. There's a lot of arguments about like they're all taking shots at AEW or this, that, and the other. Drew doesn't do that on TV because on TV it doesn't translate well. Punk is doing it a lot and it's not translating well. Drew knows where to do it, and that is on Twitter because people get really riled up about it. So he is very smartly doing it there because it gets over more there and it doesn't detract from the promos that he's doing on TV. So he's accomplishing all of this, while at the same time being the headline act of a show in his home country, which was so well received. He had a great WrestleMania match with Seth Rollins. May I add as well, a match that could have very easily been overshadowed because Rollins was the fourth wheel of a tag team match that he kind of lost his focus on, but Drew made that part of the story. It's on Drew there. He's just had an incredible year. Drew was our Wrestler of the Year in 2020, I think it was. And I think he is on track now to possibly being very high on the list, if not at the top of the list, when it comes to 2024. Drew McIntyre.
Very good. I love the sign off. It's very, very, very apt.
I haven't done a lot of debate classes at school. I only did it once, and I had to defend them advertising smoking at F1 shows.
Well, let's hear it. We'll get Ben back in the room.
It makes you look cool.
It does make you look cool. You're already breathing in like petrol fumes.
Absolutely, yeah. Company's got to make money somehow.
Yeah.
You're selling me. We're going to come back down the table this way, and we're going to go to Laurie next.
Okay. There can only be one person who is the best wrestler of 2024. It is the person who has made us believe, once again, when everyone was doubting. That person is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes has had an incredible year, from winning the Royal Rumble, back-to-back wins on the Royal Rumble. He's then gone on to main event WrestleMania in 2 different matches, and also then take up the mantle as the top face of the company. This is a man who this year out-babyfaced The Rock. That is not something to be joking about. The Rock tried to replace Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, and people went, "Nah, mate, we'll have this guy, thank you very much." People turned on The Rock for Cody. Cody is on an incredible run, and I don't want to have to say this because I am not the biggest Cody Rhodes fan, but I think the facts are undeniable here. This man is on the run of a lifetime. He's a person who, when he comes out at WWE shows, feels special, and they have been aching for somebody who feels that way for absolute years. This is somebody who also feels like somebody who can send out and do all the promo work. He can do all the TV, do all the dates, do all the live shows. WWE has been looking for Cody for years and years and years, and they have found him. They have found someone who, when they didn't pull the trigger on him last year, people lost faith. People came back into this year at the Royal Rumble being like, "Oh, well, I don't really know about Cody." And then Cody wins. We get that run to WrestleMania, and people are believers again. And that is all down to Cody. And I don't want to have to say this because I don't necessarily like the guy. But he has made a believer out of most people. And I think that is the main factor of Cody Rhodes here. He has been great in the ring. He has shown himself to be a really good champion. He's had matches that have ended up pretty close to high on these top matches of the year lists as well, all the while doing all of the burden that comes with being the WWE champion. That's way more than other people are probably having in their schedules as well. Cody is the archetypical WWE champion and therefore the best wrestler of 2024.
Very strong argument. We're going to go to Oli last, and try not to repeat too many of your points from last time.
Let's take the easy option.
Man United. I actually support Man United, actually.
Yep, it's that weird place again where I'm having to defend the best wrestler in the world for the best wrestler in the world topic. It's Will Ospreay, of course, for all the reasons I have mentioned in my previous point. Plus, hey, let's look at the other matches he's had this year. Versus Takeshita, that's like a 5.5-star match. Versus Michael Oku at Rev Pro. I believe that's Luke Owen and Tempest's favourite ever match they've seen live. Versus Josh Alexander in TNA. That's a 5.5-star match. I think the Oku match is a 6-star match. Versus Takeshita in AEW, that's a 5-star match. And of course, Danielson versus Ospreay, a 6.5-star match. He's had 5 of probably the top 7, also including Bayley and Io Sky, matches of 2024 so far. And not only in AEW, he's done it for New Japan, has he? He's done it for TNA. No, not this year. Not this year. He's done it for Rev Pro. He's done it for TNA. He's done it for AEW. In the last, I know this is just 2024, but in the last year period, no one in history has ever had more high-quality matches in so many different promotions. Who else can you ever look back on and go, oh yeah, in the space of about 6 months, this one guy had these 3 different promotions' best ever matches. Best ever match in TNA, best ever match in Rev Pro, best ever match in AEW a couple of times. Also, a lot of the concern about Will making the migration from Japan to North America, how's he going to perform on promos? Smashed it out of the park from the very first day. And it's in a way that's not just playing professional wrestling. He feels unique from every other style of delivery in AEW, in WWE, and anywhere. The bruv catchphrase has gotten over. From the very first night, he was incredibly over with the crowd, and he has gone on to be the hottest star in AEW. Will Ospreay.
Very good. Again, 3 very compelling arguments. And honestly, right now I have no idea which way I'm going to go. So I will leave it to the 3 of you to sway me by telling me how terrible the other 2 choices are going to be. So let's start it back around with Drew McIntyre. And you obviously talked about a lot of the very good work that Drew has done. Great promos, great character work, has had very good matches and such. Is there something to be said where the other 2 options here could be looked at as more of like the top star of either company, whereas Drew has been a very compelling act on the show, for example?
I think he's also been the most compelling act on Raw when he's not been the top guy. I think he has overshadowed their world heavyweight champion. He has overshadowed their women's world champion. He's overshadowed their tag team champions. He has overshadowed their intercontinental champion. He is the top guy on Raw and doesn't have any of the props to kind of bounce that up a little bit. If you're doing the My GM mode, it gives you that +10 buff. He doesn't have any of those +10 buffs. He is just buff. He is DM Hunk, and he is absolutely killing it right now. He is having, outside of, obviously, you know, outside of Cody and Roman and the Bloodline, I think Drew versus CM Punk is WWE's best feud of 2024, and they haven't had a match yet. And that is partly because one half of that is weak, but the other half of that is absolutely bolstering it up. I'm making a joke, but the other half of that is absolutely carrying this. Punk is doing a good job of this as well, but Drew McIntyre and his character work is really what is carrying this feud and making it so compelling and so must see. And he's just been unbelievable. This is the best work that Drew has done in a long, long time in WWE. And even then, I think it's better than the work he did when we loved him the first time around.
I want to say a few things about how bad of an actor Cody Rhodes is. Because he was supposed to do business for the company. Talk about how he's a good company guy. But what does he do? When The Rock, this poor guy who's had a hard time in Hollywood, he comes in and he wants to, you know, go back to his wrestling family. We're all excited. I'm excited. I know I want it. Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania. And Cody should have just stepped to one side. He was given one job. Yeah, sure, you won the Royal Rumble, Mark. Should have stepped to one side, but instead he does this. Over to you, Rock. And he turned everyone against The Rock.
Oh, yeah. That's because The Rock would say that as well in all those documentaries, wouldn't he? When he said, I invented that idea, it was all me.
Yeah, well,
because actually, I think The Rock has actually taken blame and credit for that. So I don't think we can blame Cody for that.
Brian Gewitz as well has said it was all Cody's fault.
Yeah.
Because we should have had that massive main event and he ruined it.
Because it's The Rock. The Rock's a stand-up guy, and he wouldn't throw Cody under the bus. Like Cody threw him under the bus.
No, he just threw him into a bus.
Yeah.
Very good.
Lads, what automatic win the show?
Why isn't Will Ospreay the best wrestler of the year?
It's just flips and shit, innit? I mean, anyone can do gymnastics, can't they? I think because they bruv in an Essex accent.
I think wrestling is a very rounded thing. I do think the saying bruv in an Essex accent in America is actually it. You guys like the accent. Over here, it's a bit cheesy, to be perfectly honest with you. However, I think Will Ospreay is a remarkable wrestler between the ropes. He is not necessarily the total package yet. He's a very young guy. He's still on the up of his career. That doesn't mean he is the consummate wrestler at the moment. And wrestling is a multifaceted thing. And I think this is why Cody is my pick for this, because it is a multifaceted thing about telling a long-term story what story has felt longer than Cody's, but I would say that the months in this year have been kind of that brilliant culmination of it, in the sense of we have to discard last year because we're only talking about 2024. So best wrestler this year, Cody Rhodes for that, but also who feels like a big brand deal package of a wrestler. Cody is someone who is going to be slapped on merch everywhere across the board in a way that Will Ospreay just won't be for years to come, I don't think. Like, probably until he makes his way to WWE, because AEW just doesn't have that same level that Cody is operating on. AEW is not on WWE's level, sadly.
I think there's
Heel
also
turn at the end.
I think there's an argument to be made as well that when Will went into AEW, AEW needed a Will Ospreay. They needed that top guy, right? Because that's the one that was like, well, Cody's been doing such a great job over in WWE, that being that top guy and being that number one babyface. And the argument was like, that's what AEW are kind of lacking. They're lacking their Cody Rhodes. And when Will Ospreay came in, I think it was Brian Alvarez said, they've got it. They've got their Cody Rhodes. That's what wrestling needs right now, is these guys. Because in 2024, what people are looking for is more positivity in their life. We've come out the back of a pandemic, and we're looking to just not hate on things anymore. We're looking for positivity. The era of my generation's cynicism, that Gen X millennial cynicism. I'm going to start a YouTube channel where I just talk about how bad movies are, and that's going to get me loads of things. That's going to get me loads of views, and that's going to make me really popular. That kind of era is dead now, and what people are looking for are things that they can get behind and things that they can cheer. And that's why people like Cody Rhodes and Will Ospreay are getting over to the degree they are. But what that means is that being a heel is so much harder in the world of wrestling now. Being a heel in the old days was so much easier to do because people like to cheer the bad guys. Now people need to boo the bad guys. Cody had this interesting interview recently where he was talking about how, in order to be a heel, Cody should turn heel. If I'm going to turn heel, this is Cody words, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but if I'm going to turn heel, I need to effectively cancel myself. I need to cancel myself and say things that you are not going to like to hear. And that is what Drew is doing. Drew is one of the few guys in wrestling right now who is a genuine heel that people want to boo.
Well, I think we'll wrap that round there. Oh, that is a very passionate and strong closing argument, I think, from one Luke Owen. I don't mean to say that these are compelling arguments after every round, but they are. I think you've all come very prepared and are doing a very good job. I think, at the end of all of these points, I think one stood out more than the others. I think one of you could have really hit your point home harder, but went down a bit of a rabbit hole and abandoned that a little. But when you talk about someone being an archetypical or archetypal WWE champion, I do think that carries a lot of weight. And honestly, Luke, I think you made probably the most compelling arguments for why, Drew's, his character work and everything and all that has been the best. And I was very tempted to go in your direction as well. But I'm going to give this round to Laurie for Cody Rhodes.
I support Man City.
Because I do think being a very successful top guy of WWE that no one's hating on, that is just doing the top guy thing better than we've seen anybody else do, I think that does carry a lot of weight. And all of those points were expressed. So I can't really dock points on anything in that nature. I don't think him taking the top spot for himself in favor out of The Rock's hands is a negative against him. But that being said,
You refuse to do business.
he refused to do business. No top guy's ever done that before.
Cody.
Honestly, you said you've got to pick holes in the other guy's arguments. And I can't.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. It's just tell me why Will Ospreay's not the best wrestler on the planet. I had to resort to, just flips, innit?
I think that was the tightest one, just from a base level of picks. Yeah.
It's very encouraging to see that, in years past, we've had this is the wrestler of the year. And while I'm still sure, we had our votes cast on the Wrestle Talk podcast channel a week ago, and while Will Ospreay did take that top spot, if somebody told me that Cody Rhodes was their Wrestler of the Year, or if Drew McIntyre was the Wrestler of the Year, I wouldn't think twice about it. So very good, again, all-around arguments. But we're going to switch things up a little bit now, because the first 3 of these rounds have been, what is the best of this? The best Shield member, the best Wrestler of the Year, the best match of the year. We're going to go a little bit different on this one. Because the new hot thing on Raw that gets people all hot and bothered and excited is this Wyatt 6 faction. So round 4 is going to be, which Wyatt 6 member is the most likely to break out? We've seen a lot of different members, and granted they've not shown their faces on TV, save for one, to this point, but a lot of people who haven't been given a lot of chance on WWE TV to show what they've got from either a wrestling perspective or from a character perspective. So I'm going to pose the question to you lot as to which of these 3, which of you 3 is going to present the greatest argument for who of the Wyatt 6 is going to be the breakout star of the group. We're going to start with Oli. Again, back around. Oli, who's going to be the Wyatt 6's best member, the breakout star of the group?
I believe the breakout star of the Wyatt 6 is going to be Joe Gacy. Joe Gacy looks like quite a cherub-faced younger star, and you would think that because, he's an NXT signee, only joined in 2020 off the back of the Evolve purchase. But actually, this guy's been wrestling since 2006. He's a near 20-year veteran, but he just doesn't come across that way. He's 36 right now. And I really, he was doing various things in NXT with a dyad and the old sort of spokesperson gimmick he used to have. But in the last 6 months, before he got called up, he had this really good feud with Dijak, which was just based around, I'm never going to quit. And he keeps on getting up, but not in a Kane monster way. It was in a sort of sick, Mick Foley, old deranged mankind kind of way. And I found it really, really compelling as a character. And then also, I've always found his sort of just promo delivery a very compelling style as well. And when I look at the Wyatt 6 group, even though you've got Bo Dallas in there, there's something about Joe Gacy that makes me think you are the most Bray Wyatt of the bunch. He feels like a Husky Harris from back in the day who's just been repackaged as part of the Wyatt family. He's also got his that weird slingshot discus clothesline that he does, which feels a bit like Bray's old spinning lariat and, of course, Brody's discus clothesline. And, I feel like he's going to be the breakout star. Not the strongest argument. This is just more on vibes.
You got to just go Joe Gacy at the end.
Well,
Joe Gacy.
This is it. We don't have a lot to work with thus far, save for perhaps one answer. So a lot of this does just go based off of theories as opposed to evidence from the year so far. Let's go to Laurie next.
Okay. My pick for the breakout star of the Wyatt 6 is somebody who has already been a breakout star from one faction in particular. This is Nikki Cross, who, of course, was probably the most popular and interesting person to come out of Sanity. Sanity in NXT, Nikki Cross managed to get herself completely over during that period of time. While most of the thing was focusing on the men's wrestling happening within the faction, Nikki managed to be someone who would get over, be involved in those matches, and people like to see her sort of worm her way in there amongst all the other men going on. Nikki has not had the greatest run of all time, I think, since Sanity and since NXT, really. Like, we've had Nikki Almost a Superhero, we've had the Alexa Bliss coffee thing. She's been saddled with some bad stuff and tried very, very hard to make it work. But now Nikki is returning to a form of character that I think works best for Nikki. Nikki is returning to sort of dark and witchy and crazed. And this is where Nikki really, really shines. She does crazed better than pretty much anyone else in WWE, I would say. Like, she sells you insanity. And I think the great thing about Nikki in the Wyatt 6 is she also probably has the most interesting role in terms of, like, the overall Bray Wyatt lore, right? She is playing Sister Abigail. Sister Abigail is the character that Bray came into the company talking about. This completely off-screen, unseen witch of the backwoods swamps that gave him all of the teachings that he gave to the entire family. Nikki should with any right, have a lot of work to do in terms of making this character interesting and believable, because this character is seemingly one of the most fundamental to the overall lore of the Wyatts. Like, you've got the introspective stuff of all of these other characters coming in here. Uncle Howdy is kind of a new facet that came in even more recently, but Sister Abigail is like baked into the skin of this faction, like baked into the deep stuff that Wyatt has been talking about, that he was talking about for his entire career in WWE. So I think that, combined with Nikki's ability to break out of factions, makes it by far and away the most likely to do that here.
And that leaves Luke.
I will obviously talk about mine first. Actually, I'll talk about mine first, and then we'll come out to the arguments afterwards, of course. I think we already have our answer, and it's Bo Dallas. He is the one who is already broken out of this group. He was the one who had the hardest task ahead of him in this faction, because he is the one who has got to carry this legacy. He is the one who has got to carry this torch, and it's the heaviest torch for him to carry. When the group debuted, and in fact, actually, if I may just go back just ever so slightly, the Uncle Howdy gimmick did not get over when he was doing it with Bray, because it looked like a Mighty Boosh character, and he came out and was like, "Milady," and people were very quick to make fun of it, and it didn't really work. And yet he has now taken this character, rebranded it, retooled it, and has reformatted it, and now it is the most talked about thing in WWE that isn't Drew McIntyre. I should have got that round last time. And those promos that he's been doing are showing you that Bo has been capable of this for so long. He's just never been given the opportunity to do it. It's 3 weeks now he's done these promos. He's got this incredible delivery. And he's got this incredible way of inflecting the way that he uses his words and stuff. And I think that he has got the chance to be not just the breakout star of this group, but be the star of this group, because he's never been given this opportunity to be the star of a group or of a faction or anything within WWE, and I think this is going to be his chance to be able to do it. And if I can, we said a lot of this is vibes. There isn't a lot of evidence to go on here, but I actually have evidence to bring forward to this, and that is from this past Monday's Raw, where Adam Pearce opened up his door to his office, and Bo Dallas was sitting there. The crowd in the building lost their minds for Bo just sitting there, because he's a real person now. He's not just a guy that's on a mini disc player or on a VHS tape. He's a physical embodiment. And the people lost their minds. When we did the Rest Talk podcast, that was the thing that a lot of people were really focusing on. A show that had a lot, Rhea Ripley's return. We had a lot of people still messaging, being like, Bo's there. Bo was there in person. What does this mean? Where are we heading to next? He's got so much buzz around him already. And I think that he's going to be able to take that forward and become a top star out of it.
I think this will be a shorter round in general, because we do need to get to our main event shortly. And just, again, I don't think there's as much of an argument to be made without reiterating a lot of the same points. That being said, I do think that, again, these are as good an argument as you could possibly make with the information we have been given thus far. So I'm gonna call the round after the.
If I may,
sure.
I don't think Nikki is Sister Abigail. I think she's Abby the Witch, who is different.
It was based on Sister Abigail.
Yes, but it is a different person. I just wanted to make that point.
Indeed. Now I'll call the round.
Can we call the round now?
Before the comments get in.
Can we just have one? Can I just
Sure,
say one thing against Luke?
have a conclusion paragraph each, and then we'll close the round.
Well, I won't boost up my pick anymore, but I will say I love Nikki Cross. However, I think Alexa Bliss long term will be the biggest star in the group, and I think Nikki Cross will, as usual, be the secondary player to Bliss. And yeah, that's why she's Abby the Witch, not Sister Abigail full on. And for Bo Dallas, yes, he's knocked out the park so far, but I think he's going to encounter the same problems that Bray found with his own creativity, and that is when they get inside the ring, there's only so long that gimmick can last.
Yeah.
And that will, I'm hoping it doesn't, but I think that's a big obstacle to it for him. Whereas Joe Gacy will have a bit more of an easy path to success.
I don't know about that. If only because I don't think there's a lot of people that can point to a lot of good Joe Gacy matches. And I wonder if he's going to have the bell rings and problems are going to present themselves.
My argument would be that Bo is already a star in this group. Bo has already walked in and been a star. He was already part of a very intriguing, interesting story going on. He's not going to break out of this group because he's already being presented as the star of the group. It doesn't. He is disqualified from this because he is already the star. Breaking out means overcoming and not just being part of the faction. Bo is already being presented as other from the faction.
Overcoming? He's got to overcome being the brother of the guy who the group is based on. Like, that is probably the most overcoming that anyone in the group has to do. He's got actually the hardest task of anyone in this group in order to get over. And I would disagree that I don't think he's ever been a star in WWE. He was the B team. He was the social outcast. He was Bo Leave. He was saddled with cat gimmick after cat gimmick after cat gimmick. He's never been given the chance. So which means he can be the breakout star of this group because he's never had the chance to be a star in the first place.
I thought you were saying cat gimmick.
Oh, if only he was getting a cat gimmick, he probably would have got that over either.
Yeah. I will call the round there. And again, I think all of you made the points for your particular choices that I really wanted each of you to make. Even Oli at the end. Because I do think of the people in the group, Joe Gacy is the best worker of the bunch. I've seen a fair few Joe Gacy matches that I think were pretty good. Didn't like his work in NXT, but that was more down to character. But similar to how we had perhaps an easier argument to make with best match of the year so far, I do think there is one option here where I think an argument was a bit easier to present given what we've been shown thus far. And I'm going to give this round to Luke with Bo Dallas. Yeah. Whether or not he needs to break out or whatnot, I think is a bit of semantics.
This competition's corrupt.
I remember that Bo Leave gimmick. He needed to break out of the B team real bad. And it appears that he's going to, and I hope that he does. So with that being said, we're going to bring this to our final round of Gripebomb competition before our true main event bonus round of Math versus Pipebomb. That being, what is the best Money in the Bank ladder match of all time? We just had this pay-per-view this past weekend, and it offered some choices, should someone choose to pick them. Don't know if anyone has. That being said, let's start with Luke. What is the best Money in the Bank ladder match that there has ever been over these last near 20 years?
2014. I love this match because this is the match that has some guys in there. Some guys do their spots, some guys do their ladder stuff, biddly-doodly-doo. But at its very core, it has got Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, the breakup of the Shield. This is their first match. This is the first part of the breakup of the Shield. It's the first time these two really start to clash together. And that story goes through the entire match, even leading up to the finish where Kane comes down and stops Dean Ambrose from winning, allowing Seth Rollins to win, which in turn leads to the greatest cash-in of all time at WrestleMania 31. So not only is it an incredibly good Money in the Bank ladder matches, which I do think are a rarity, it also is the catalyst for the greatest cash-in of all time. Also within that, you've got this insane bump that Seth Rollins takes where he hits a ladder and bumps on it about 5 times. It's wild. And it is awesome. It was also a ladder match that felt very different to the ladder match that WWE were doing at the time because all of a sudden you had guys like Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in there, bringing some ROH and bringing some CZW into it. And it's awesome. What's fascinating about that 2014 one as well is that the lineup of that ladder match is not supposed to be the lineup of that Money in the Bank ladder match. The ones who are in the main event, or at least some of the guys in that main event, they're supposed to be in this one. Things like guys like Alberto Del Rio are supposed to be in this one over here. But then because Danielson vacated the belt, that became about the world title, and let's create a new ladder match. And that ladder match surpasses this one over here, even though it's the one for the world title. So it's so good. It's great.
Very good.
2014.
2014. Laurie, let's go to you next.
Okay. Well, my pick for the greatest Money in the Bank ladder match of all time is the first one, 2005. Now, we don't talk about this match as much as we should do because there are some elements of it that we don't like to talk about. Kane's a Republican. But there's also, it's just a great lineup in this match. We've got Chris Jericho, we've got Chris Benoit, we have Kane, we have Edge, we have Christian, and we have Shelton Benjamin. This is a match that came out of the gate and got over a gimmick. How many matches has WWE tried to get over a gimmick? A brand new style of match that nobody has ever seen before. And how many of them have been successful? Sure, there are the big hitters, then we've got the Royal Rumbles and stuff, but it's really only the Elimination Chamber and Money in the Bank that have come out the gate with a brilliant match and stood the test of time in terms of like brand new gimmicks that WWE have come up with. Money in the Bank 2005 managed to show a load of new stuff. Basically, there were a load of spots in that have just never been seen before. I think also composition-wise, it is maybe one of the most perfect lineups for that kind of match. You've got Jericho, you've got Benoit, who was probably at the top of his particular game at that exact time. You've got Kane, the big force that everyone needs to overcome. You've got the tag team of Edge and Christian, ladder match specialists on opposite sides in the middle of this. And then you've got Shelton Benjamin, who is just on peak athletic form, doing crazy stuff all across the board. This was also a match in which, this was during a time in WWE that I don't think necessarily 2014 was in, where just matches felt real dangerous. This felt really dangerous. This was people just chucking ladders and scenery around. There's a bit where one of the ladders gets like German suplexed as part of a German suplex. It just goes flying out of the ring. The amount of care put into this feels maybe a little bit lackluster, but it gave it this vibe of being incredibly dangerous, and you can see the crowd just hotting it. They start hot and they end hotter. They just go electric by the end of this entire thing. And I think just in sheer duration of getting over this entire gimmick and then getting over the briefcase gimmick, because Edge wins and then goes on to cash in, like, you have the perfect package. This was a match that came out of the gate fully formed and sold us all on an entire format.
And that brings us to Oli. Go on then.
2020. I could just rest my argument there, but I'm not going to, because it is 2020. That means men and women should be on equal footing. So why not have the match for both genders at the same time? Yeah, it's the pandemic. They've just had the Firefly Funhouse video essay movie thing, which was so well received critically and commercially. Like, what has pushed the art form of professional wrestling further than that match and actually worked? So WWE thought, we can do this every couple of months. Maybe even when the pandemic's over, we can keep these cinematic things going. And they knocked it out the HQ. Because you start, like, what is a better concept than WWE HQ? Everyone starts at the bottom, they've got to work their way up, and they get to the top. And there's a ring on the top of the building with a ladder to get something even higher than the top of the building to get the briefcase. It's Dread. It's Die Hard. It's all your favourite action movies in one. And it's got cameos. It's got John Laurinaitis. It's got Vince McMahon. It's got...
Say Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah,
it's got Bruce Pritchard. It's got a guy who says he's Doink the Clown, but isn't Doink the Clown. It's got Stephanie McMahon interrupting Dana Brooke, unhooking what is clearly a replica briefcase. They were told at the start, you've got to go all the way to the top of the building, and Dana Brooke's just in a random meeting room, and there's a briefcase there. She unhooks it. She's like, I won. And because this match has no crowd noise, no commentators, they put an orchestral score underneath all of these moments. So it's tense music, But then Dana Brooke unhooks this briefcase, and you get soaring orchestral celebration music. And then Stephanie McMahon, clearly filmed on a completely different day from a completely different location, interrupts her. You get a food fight. You get Shayna Baszler being written out the match through falling over. It's not Shayna, is it Dana?
Yeah.
Dana Brooke. And then,
Dana Baszler.
when you think it can't get any better, at the top of the building, and Asuka's unhooked her briefcase, you get Baron Corbin committing murder. Not once, but twice. He throws Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black off the top of the building. Thankfully, there was a smaller roof. Beneath that roof,
That was
that
never
caught
set
them
up.
both. Money in the Bank 2020. A lot of the Money in the Bank ladder matches blend into one, but this one stands supreme. The risk is worth the reward. No, have I done it the wrong way round? The reward is worth the risk, 2020.
No, that's the one that would make sense. They do it the wrong way.
Yeah, I couldn't remember which way it was.
Well, that is an interesting choice, I will certainly say. Excuse me, sir. Hello. You say that men and women will be on equal footing. Would this not perhaps be seen as women being forced to take half of the amount of time to share it with the men in a match, perhaps, instead of just being in the main event to the pay-per-view like we've seen them be?
What do you mean? They're both in the same match. Men and women headline that pay-per-view.
With both getting half the amount of time they would have otherwise.
But that's equality.
Tremendous. Well, anywho, down to this end of the table, however, because we do have, well, we've got three very different ladder matches to discuss here, but I
One of
think
them's technically not a ladder match.
It eventually becomes.
sure, it's a long
One of them's
preamble
a
for ladder
commute.
match. Yeah.
It's a climb the corporate ladder match, is how it was described.
But 2014 and 2005 being the more similar of the three that we've got here, I think both could definitely make the argument about launching a new star, getting somebody else up to a main event, level in Edge and in Seth Rollins. I think Laurie made a really good point about the varied lineup of the 6 wrestlers you have in the 2005 match. The other wrestlers that you have in the 2014 match, however, Luke, you talked a lot about how Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose kind of carry that match with the, Shield story going through, however. But the rest of the lineup, it feels like perhaps some of them get, lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Because ultimately, and that's what I think makes the 2014 match so interesting, and why I do think it is the best one, is ultimately no one else really matters in that match. It is about Seth and it is about Dean. Very rarely in the Money in the Bank ladder match is it used almost as a backdrop to further a much bigger storyline that is going to pay off in a different match, while at the same time getting over the Money in the Bank gimmick, while at the same time getting over the top heel faction in the Authority, and what is the most cataclysmic thing of 2014, which is the breakup of the Shield. So I think from that aspect of it, it's why it's the most memorable one, outside of an obvious answer and the first one, is because Oli made this point earlier. A lot of the other Money in the Bank ladder matches kind of blend into one. They're all just sort of much of a muchness with the kind of the similar sort of names. But 2014 stands out from those because it doesn't actually matter who the other 5 people or 6 people or 10 people were in that match. It's these 2 guys. They carry this match because their whole match is built around them. It's unique in Money in the Bank in that regard. And I think that's why it is the best one.
Laurie, your rebuttal against that, perhaps?
Well, why would you have all the other people in there to just do a job, just to be there to do some flips and stuff? I think that the great thing about 2005 is that every single person gets a moment to shine. Every single person feels like a vital moment in that match waiting to happen. The whole story of that match is everybody gets their little bit. It could be anybody's game until Edge comes in and steals the entire thing with that chair shot to Chris Benoit's injured arm, basically. It feels like it doesn't have a load of story necessarily going into it. It's not focusing on like one person's feud, which I think is a detriment to 2014. Actually, it being so focused on two people, because I think it's kind of disrespectful to everyone else who is there. Ultimately, why was that not just a singles match? If that's what you really wanted to do, it's because you also wanted to have Seth have the briefcase, which again, it's copying and pasting from the blueprint of a Money in the Bank ladder match, isn't it? The archetype of a Money in the Bank ladder match, the 2005 match.
And I actually, to Laurie's point, I think one of the key things about how good a Money in the Bank ladder match is the cash-in that comes after it. And 2014 obviously does lead to the greatest cash-in of all time at WrestleMania 31. I think yours has the great cash-in. You know, it's certainly a top 6 cash-ins for Edge at New Year's Revolution. But 2020...
I agree.
Did Asuka cash in?
Well, that's the thing.
I agree. It's an all-time moment. Asuka actually just wins the belt the next night because of that beautiful reveal. Apparently a shoot.
It was a shoot. But what happened on the men's side of things?
I don't want to get into what happens after. We're talking about the match.
Well, okay,
we're talking about the match.
What is the finish of the 2020, certainly on the men's side of things?
Otis gets it. What I want to focus on
how
is...
does he get it?
He catches it. What I want to focus on...
Why does he catch it?
Because Baron Corbin and AJ Styles wrestled too hard for it.
Yeah, because
they wanted it so much.
AJ got it, and they went, whoa! And then Otis caught it.
Well,
and you think that is the ending to the best Money in the Bank ladder match?
It's because he maintained control.
It's actually worse than Kane interfering in the 2014 one, which is actually quite a bad finish.
Well, this is going to be my point. There's a lot of great Kane. There's also, probably, let's be honest, more bad Kane. And Kane... Kane...
How dare you?
Kane in 2020.
How dare you? It is Slacks Kane.
Slacks Kane.
Is one of the better Kanes. That is second best Kane.
Bad finish. Good finish?
I'll give everybody a final conclusion statement here. I do think this round has taken a turn for me at a point.
It was Kane.
That being said, Ollie, wrap up.
I really am weirdly fond about 2020 and the sort of things that WWE tried to do to get round not having fans in there. And they tried a lot of things. And a lot of it failed. But occasionally they would strike gold. And that's the Firefly Funhouse. But then they also did this Money in the Bank 2020. And there are parts of that time, like the Survivor Series egg situation from later on that year, us watching that together on stream from the pandemic households over Zoom, those were bright spots of insanity. The problem with WWE and AEW right now is that they're so good that you can't just sit there and laugh at them anymore. But that's the sort of one joy that I would have while stuck in my flat for weeks on end. Is watching it with you guys, and that I wouldn't have laughed at just a boringly booked ladder match.
Don't be pathetic. Have some dignity, man.
Laurie,
have some dignity. Playing on the old heartstrings, Oli Davis. Anyway, Edge won my one, and you love Canadians.
Damn it! Oh, that's a really good point. You also love people from Iowa, and that's where Seth's from. Hey, Slipknot's second album. It's called Iowa, and that is arguably that's their best album. So when you put it all together, 2014 is the obvious answer to go with. Look, here's the thing: is like I know I said like, oh, it's also a bad finish 2014 one, and it kind of is, but it's one of those matches that overcomes that. Like it doesn't really matter like that is the finish. Like no one looks at it and be like, oh man, they ruined Money in the Bank there. It actually gets over Seth. It gets over the authority. And it makes you want to cheer Dean more. So yours made a star. Mine made 2 stars. And it led to the greatest cash in of all time.
I was ready to sign this one off. But that was a very compelling conclusion statement. Well, first, I think we can easily narrow this down to 2.
Sorry, Laurie.
It was a good effort, though. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
As objectively as possible.
Was it Benoit? It was Benoit, wasn't it? Sorry.
Comparing the 2020 Money in the Bank match to Die Hard. I was checked out before you'd even mentioned the appearances of horrible people like
Bruce
Johnny
Pritchard's not
Ace
too
and Vince, and I'm sure that guy that played Doink has got some skeletons in his closet too. Screw him. So that would narrow it down to 2. And I was really waiting for the point to be made that this ladder match not only got over Seth, but it got over Dean in defeat, which is something that I think only a few Money in the Bank matches can say that they did. Up to that point, I think that Laurie made a very convincing argument for this first Money in the Bank match, the struggle that it had to put over this new thing and do so with a very great lineup and such. But I will not be swayed by attempts of Canadians and such.
I think it's outrageous.
So I'm going to give this final round to Money in the Bank 2014.
Yeah.
This competition's rigged.
I'm glad that there was part of me that wanted to play off something you'd said earlier in the show, which is that you never acknowledge that the other person's is better. I was going to throw the whole thing and be like, oh no, 2020, because now you have to pick that one as the best one.
I absolutely do not, sir. However, that leaves us with perhaps a bit of a conundrum. Oh, wait! Because the points are 2, 1, and 2. We can't have a tie. But thankfully for this episode, we have our own built-in tiebreaker round. Because we will now be finally, definitively, for once and all time, determining Steiner Math or the Pipe Bomb. What is the greatest promo of all time? I will be bidding you adieu because we are going to be changing things up a little bit because I don't know if anybody remembers, but Steiner Math may or may not have featured on one of my TLC lists, albeit at number 10. But apparently, I cannot be trusted to give an objective opinion about this. Thus, I will pass over the reins to someone who has been completely impartial.
I don't like wrestling. So.
That being Laurie Blake. Laurie, you will be our final arbiter of this here Gripebombs show. I need the best possible arguments for both Steiner Math and the Pipe Bomb. And Laurie will decide the winner. We're going to take a little bit of a break just to shuffle some chairs and line this shot up nice and tidy. So don't go away. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Math versus Pipe Bomb. A battle for the ages. Something I care very little about, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'm sure you watching at home do. These two clearly do. Our two competitors, Oli, who will be arguing that the Pipe Bomb is greater than Steiner Math, and Luke, who will be arguing that Steiner Math is greater than the Pipe Bomb. But only one person can decide, and that, it's me! I get to do it! Yeah, too much responsibility, Tempest, you idiot. Right, okay, well, should we kick things off? Who wants to go first? Anyone feeling confident?
Losers up first.
Losers go second.
Losers up first. Oli Davis, with your notes.
Luke Owen, while you sit there, as hopefully as uncomfortable as you can possibly be, I want you to listen to me. I want you to digest this, because I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest. I don't hate the Steiner Maths promo. Luke, I don't even dislike it. I like it. I like it a hell of a lot more than a lot of most ironic promos. I hate this idea that it's the best, because it's not. The Pipe Bomb is the best. The Pipe Bomb is the best in the world. No other promo has changed the course of the wrestling industry. A lot of promos are used to get over someone, like the 316 Stone Cold Steve Austin. A lot of promos are used to build a match, like at a wrestling pay-per-view. But very few break the meta walls. They literally go, hello Colt Cabana, how you doing? Oops, I'm breaking the fourth wall. This is a meta commentary on the state of wrestling in 2011 and all that pent-up frustration that I and you and loads of other people who were watching at that time had, because WWE was not an enjoyable place to work or to watch and be a fan of. It was the stuff outside of wrestling that was really engaging us. And Punk was literally the voice of the voiceless. He went on screen and he said all of these things that we were saying on our chat rooms, on our Reddit threads. And from that, it gave a leader to follow. Yes, he did not then enact the change that he said. And I don't begrudge him for that, because he was working for that WWE machine, which over 10 years ago was not a nice place, and it ground him down. And it forced him to go away from a thing that he loves. He told me in an AEW promo. But other people were inspired by this promo, the Pipe Bomb, to take up the mantle and go and change the wrestling industry using the mission statement he laid out. People like Cody Rhodes, people like Drew McIntyre, Tony Khan, The Elite, Kenny Omega, and they made AEW. And now we are living through the greatest wrestling period ever, arguably, in both TV numbers and merchandise deals and live attendance and just the pure quality of the in-ring work rate and storylines, because it's AEW versus WWE. Sure, Vince left, but it was also, that competition was already in place before Vince left and the quality of the product was increasing. That can be traced back to Punk and his Pipe Bomb, and later on Punk back referencing that Pipe Bomb when he joined AEW and then when he goes to WWE. It's the basis of like all his feuds now. Pipe Bomb.
Luke Owen, your rebuttal.
Pipe Bomb didn't lead to that. The Pipe Bomb led to a match at Money in the Bank that was then a bungled follow-up story, and then it was a title unification match at SummerSlam, and then Kevin Nash got involved, and then Punk went on a feud with him. Then he won the title back, and then we got the Summer of Punk, which started in the winter. The Pipe Bomb did not create AEW. The Pipe Bomb did not create the rise of New Japan Pro Wrestling. The Pipe Bomb did not create Cody Rhodes going off to WCPW. It did not create Drew McIntyre giving this huge boon to the UK independent scene. The Pipe Bomb is a very, very good promo. It is an iconic promo. It is such a good promo. But it is not as iconic as Steiner Math. Steiner Math has followed not just Scott around, it's followed an entire promotion around. Unlike the Pipe Bomb, STEINER has actually defined an entire promotion. WWE did nothing with the pipe bomb apart from grind it into the ground and make it rubbish. TNA have done it but celebrate math and celebrate how important it is to them without making it part of someone's character. They didn't make him the following week do another follow-up maths promo and then give him maths-based t-shirts. It was just a promo that has outlived. I mean, it's about the TNA. It will outlive most other wrestling promos. It will outlive probably all wrestling promos. And here is the great thing about STEINER, and here is why I think it is the greatest promo of all time. Not only because it is so memorable, not only because it's so quotable, not only because everyone knows this promo. It was the second take. He did it once, and P.D. Williams laughed too much, so they did it a second time. That promo is not by accident. It is by design. And it is so beautiful for that.
Very interesting points made. Let's ask some questions, shall we, very quickly, of our panel. Oli, do you think the mythologizing that you're putting on the pipe bomb is coping, or do you think it's real? Do you think Punk actually started all these things, or do you just think do you think there was just a wider feeling in wrestling that he just captured in a promo but didn't necessarily create the wave?
Yes. Yes to both of those
yes
things.
to both of those things.
Well, you get sentiments in fandom or in society or in workforces all the time, and it's just people being disgruntled. And that is a very real thing, and it bubbles and it bubbles and it bubbles. Does it ever bubble over? For it to bubble over, you need someone to unite all of those people, give them someone to get behind, and plant your flag in the ground. And that's exactly what Punk did with that promo.
Very interesting. Does STEINER math make sense at all, Luke?
Of course it does. Like, I believe people have put this into like ChatGPT, and it says, yeah, no, this does add up. Like he does use math incorrectly, but the general basis of it does make sense.
Which do you think you quote more?
STEINER math.
Hmm?
Yeah, anytime I see Samoa Joe, I think Senor Joe.
Okay, so do you, Oli, have a rebuttal for why math is not better than pipe bomb?
Luke said that TNA, what was it used to build, and that TNA mythologized and really celebrated this promo. That's not true either. That was not. We've gone back and watched that show of Sacrifice, and it is not mentioned at all. That is a promo that has gotten a lifespan because everyone who watched it at the time, which would have been me and Luke on Impact, we laughed. That's funny. And then a couple of years later, it was uploaded to YouTube, and then it it got this whole new life. But that's years after it was cut. And it was, like, while the pipe bomb was used to build the Money in the Bank 2011 promo, the match, the Scott Steiner promo was used to build the match against Samoa Joe at Sacrifice. So it's the same thing. And then I look at, okay, well, what had the better payoff there? Is it Sacrifice, or is it Money in the Bank 2011, which is considered one of the greatest wrestling pay-per-views of all time? Because you don't just look at the pipe bomb promo then, by your logic, you've got to look at the conditions it created for that John Cena CM Punk title match, which is that Chicago crowd. It's one of the greatest pops ever.
And it would have had that even without the pipe bomb promo. Look, I'm not taking anything away from the pipe bomb. It is legit iconic. It is probably, I mean, it's among like the greatest promos that WWE have ever done. Like, certainly like top 5. I think you can probably make an argument for top 3. I think it is up there with Austin 316. But I do push back on this idea that Steiner Maths is only popular because of people uploading it to YouTube and making fun of it. Because while that is correct, that's also why it's incredible. Because it was not just, it was a promo in a moment that we watched and we moved on from. Legit, like Oli and I have read back on the Figure 4s and the Wrestling Observers at the time, and like no one makes reference to it. It's not like everyone's like, whoa, Scotty cut this weird promo, because that's what Scotty does. But that's the point. Scott Steiner has had a career of cutting weird promos. Scott Steiner has a career of being like, everybody knows what to know, where I've been. Like, he has got a weird way of doing promos.
He's that bowling guy.
He's a weird guy.
Yeah.
And in a sea of weird promos, it's this one. This is the one that people think of. If you think of Scott Steiner, you think of this. If you think of CM Punk, you might not specifically think of the pipe bomb. You might think of any of the other great promos that he did. You might think of the Raven feud in Ring of Honor. You might think of not the promo, but the Money in the Bank match in 2011. You might think of his return promo in AEW. You might think of his return promo in WWE. But if you say to someone, Scott Steiner, they're going to think of one promo, and it is this one promo. It's not just an iconic promo in wrestling, it's an iconic promo for him, it's an iconic promo for a promotion. It has probably done more promotion for TNA than anything that Hogan and Bischoff did in their run. Like, inarguable, actually. It's done more promotion than anything that Hogan or Bischoff did for it, did anything than the Smashing Pumpkins ever did for them, did anything that Dixie Carter ever did for them. It is the TNA promo.
It's a very interesting point. Let us have one last paragraph in summary.
Well, you said you didn't like the heartstrings being tugged earlier. I'm going to do it anyway. Tug, 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 tug.
I don't have them.
Tug, 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 tug.
He's dead inside.
Dead inside. What a wrestling YouTube channel.
I genuinely don't know, without the pipe bomb, if we're here doing this. Because in 2011, off the back of the Nexus angle, in 2010 in the summer, I was done with WWE. And I was like, I'll go watch Ring of Honor. I got into the British wrestling indie scene. But that wasn't the fuel. I couldn't have continued my fandom in a way that I needed to like start working for Wrestle Talk and stuff if I was just following the indies. I needed to be watching WWE. But I was done with it. And I'd watched the CM Punk bits. And it was that 2011 promo from Punk voicing all the frustrations I had that made me get back in for a long time. And then they brought in the Shield, and they always had something going that I could latch onto after that. But that was the closest I've ever come from that Nexus angle to the Punk pipe bomb, to quitting watching wrestling altogether. So if I quit watching wrestling back then, I'm not gonna, bring Luke on or bring you on and stuff. We built the whole company off the back of this pivotal moment. This is like the origin story of my second wave adult fandom of wrestling. And it also came at a time where I was pretty, my university girlfriend were just split up. I had to move back in with my parents. This was all I had, Laurie.
This isn't doing the work you think it's
so
doing.
when I listen to it, it's not just, sure, it has the big ramifications for the industry that I argue at least, and it's just a cool promo in and of itself. But just personally, the work it did for me to sort of support a hero, and it's still why I idolize Punk to this day, no matter what he does. It's the personal and the macro both combine. It's more well-rounded than Luke's choice.
Final paragraph.
I just started watching when the Shield came in anyway. We'd have still been here. We'd have still been doing this. We'd have been wearing these t-shirts anymore. Look, I love Pipe Bomb. I do. I think it is an incredible piece of work. I think it is a very important promo in the history of professional wrestling. But I think one promo stands above it, and it's Steiner Math. I was at a Rev Pro show. I don't buy a lot of wrestling merch, but I was at a Rev Pro show, and I was stood behind someone who had a Scott Steiner t-shirt on, and it had the Steiner Math promo written out on it. And I thought to myself, I might buy that t-shirt, because that's a really funny t-shirt. That is something that everyone in this room gets. Like, everyone watching at home gets. That is our joke. That is our in thing. It is a promo that has transcended one promotion. It has just become this whole ubiquitous wrestling thing. It is something that collectively we all love. It's not as divisive as the Pipe Bomb promo done by a guy who is as divisive as CM Punk is. Everybody loves Steiner Math.
Okay.
Send your joke.
It's in your Joe. I think interesting points made on both sides. I think the key, you're both talking about collectivity, I think, is the interesting thing. And you're talking about the idea of this wave of fan change behind the scenes. And then this one guy takes this very brave decision, an interesting and crazy decision, to call that out on the biggest platform that you can possibly have. You're talking about the fact that this thing has come from nothing, almost like nobody was watching TNA necessarily except you you losers. And then this promo breaks out and becomes such a part of the wrestling parlance. Like, I imagine, like, how many people have actually seen Sacrifice? Yeah. Like, it's probably the crazy thing, but I bet most people have seen and can quote the Steiner Math promo. So the choice is difficult here because I think both are very good promos for very different reasons. I think your pipe bomb is giving that voice to the voiceless, and I think Steiner Math, there's no reason for it to be as good as it is. It's just become the thing, and I think that is what sways me, because Punk was telling a promo on the biggest stage of all to a partisan audience. Scott Steiner did this promo that was picked up later, transcended its own origins to become one of the touchstones of wrestling fandom in a way that the pipe bomb probably isn't. Like, the pipe bomb, CM Punk's whole mix is, CM Punk might be a cultural touchstone, but this is the defining thing, like you said, for Scott Steiner. Most people don't think about what else Scott Steiner's up to, but they think Steiner Math. So my pick for the best promo is Math.
Oh my god. Even at the end, I thought you were doing a swerve joke.
I don't swell.
Oh my god. I can't believe you've just done this.
You can't pull my heartstrings. Don't try and play me.
Math wins again.
You got minus points for that. Math wins. And that brings this episode of Gripebombs to an end. I don't know.
Maths.
I don't know the schedule. I don't know when we're going to do this again. I've been given no prep to do. But go watch Worst Match Ever, which will be linked on the end of this video. We will see you very soon. Jam that jam, everyone.
Math that math. Yeah!